Indian Constitution is the lengthiest written constitution of the world, and it was due to which factors we have discussed. And same time, I suggested that Indian Constitution can be seen as a very specific document, as it includes all characters, all features which can make the society disciplined. Although it is known as a democratic document, it is also considered a living document because it has the sensitivity about the different back section of the society, yani ki the people who are marginalized, the people who are depressed, the people who are deprived of the privileges, they all have been given the equal respect in our constitution. Indian Constitution is a flexible plus rigid. It means it is situationally, it has the ability to adjust itself. It means Constitution includes many provisions of character which make it very sensitive, living in nature, and democratic in character. For example, the provision related to fundamental rights, provision related to election, provision related to equality, justice, make it democratic. Similarly, Article 368, the provision to amend the Constitution and its provisions, make it adjustable. According to the situation, the provision can be amended under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. That's why it is considered as living constitution. It is living also because it is sensitive for the backward section of society, the weaker section of the society, the exploitative section of the society. For the women, for children, it acts like a guardian. It protects the people who are depressed, who are deprived, who are not treated equally. They all have been given the mutual respect. Even abolition of untouchability, abolition of human trafficking, and many other provisions like prohibition of child labor, etc., make it sensitive, means living in its emotion. So Indian Constitution is a very special document. It is not just a set of rules and regulations to govern the society and country. It is a very special document. It is living in its character, sensitive in its approach, and democratic in its nature. So let's study another factor, and the next factor is it is the combination of federal and unitary constitution. Indian Constitution is federal as well as unitary. लास्ट क्लास में जो हमने पढ़ा है तो उसके आगे हम आगे जा रहे हैं. अगला फीचर है, चूंकि प्रीलिम्स में यू विल गेट क्वेश्चंस इन प्रीलिम्स आल्सो कि व्हाट विच कैरेक्टर ऑफ इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेक इट फेडरल, which character of Indian Constitution makes it unitary. So, because we are having a special document, special means neither we are completely federal nor we are unitary, but we are what described as blend of federal and unitary constitution. Now, why and how? Two question arises. Why means ki if we are saying that Indian Constitution is blend of federal plus unitary constitution. Now the question arises that why we opted this and how we can say that it is blend of federal and unitary. How we can say it and why it is like this. Why it is like this? We have opted federal features because we have different geographical and political units in our country. At the time of making of our constitution, the most important challenge at that time was the reorganization of states. The Union of India was not like any other union, because we were having three different type of units. One, what we have received from British government, that is 9 provinces, more than 500 princely states having different kind of rule. And after that, we had included many other regions under the French, Portuguese, etc. Means ki after commencement of our constitution, even we have included many regions in our union. We were bound to get a federal polity. We were bound to accept the federal polity, because without giving the proper autonomy to all the regions, it was not possible to ensure uniformity, unity, and integrity of the nation. By accepting their diversity, we had tried to maintain unity in our country. And by accepting the diversity of different regions, we provided them as a separate political entity to regulate their own requirement, own resources, own needs, and own character. We had accepted their identity. We had accepted their linguistic identity, and similarly we had accepted their distinct demography, their culture, their political requirements, because in the matter of development all states were not equal. Even in the case of culture, they were having different diverse situation and pattern. Multiple ethnic groups have different types of requirement. Even all regions were not equally developed, and all regions were not equally enriched in resources. But every region had its own identity. At the time when they demanded the separation in the form of linguistic region, they tried to make their identity, to ensure their identity in the form of linguistic state. Then it was clear that without considering their distinct identity, it was not possible to maintain the unity and integrity of India. That's why our constitution makers suggested that we have to accept federal character to unite all the regions into one, but not by force, by providing them autonomy. If we'll provide them autonomy, then they will develop their own, and when all the states will be developed, when all the state will be capable to use their resources for their development, then overall union, overall India will be developed, because all these states collectively forms India. So in situation may, if we will provide them the autonomy, then they will develop their own resources, they will maintain, they will manage their own affairs. And if they are managing their own affairs, then they will not blame to others. They will not be able to blame others for their own scarcity, because they are independent, they are autonomous to exercise their power, they are autonomous to use their own resources. Then they cannot blame any other state for their own deprivedness, for their own scarcity. And then every state will be capable for develop them. If they are not developed, they are backward, then they are the region, not any other. And in this case, the constitution will provide them support. Constitution providing independent or autonomous status to them, after providing, will unite them into one being, and that is the single citizenship. And for that we have to adopt some unitary characters. Constitution maker says that we will provide them autonomy, but it can let the regionalism. And if they will not follow the provisions of the constitution, then we will have the authority to take action against them. Means they are, even today they are demanding for their own resources. They are demanding for their own identity. Every state is only focusing their own development. And competitive federalism, the term competitive federalism came into force. Cooperative federalism was our motto, but now one state is competing with other. One state making certain kind of provision and second state trying to counter that with second provision. And this counter provisions are the reality of our current union. But at the time of our making of our constitution, at that time it both were required. Federal character was our dream, because in 1935 Act we had a federal polity, and in federal polity the diverse country can survive. If a country is very diverse in its culture, in its identity, in its political characters, in its regional specificity, then the best form of polity is federal polity. But because we were facing many challenges at the time of commencement of our constitution, at that time we were under threat, not due to communalism but also regionalism and other factors. At that time it was very necessary to ensure the unity and integrity of the nation. That's why the provisions like emergency, provisions like centralized government in certain situations, provisions like single citizenship were included in our constitution, so that in spite of having diverse political system in country, no one can separate itself from our Union of India. No one can secede from our this entity. And for that purpose, certain unitary characters were included in our constitution. It means if you are going to give answer why we opted this, then a single statement: due to the situation, due to political, social, cultural and regional situations, we were bound to opt this combination. If the situation were not like that, then we can have a federal system of government. But because we were facing multiple challenges and the states were not very mature, they were fighting on the ground of, on the basis of language, they were fighting on the basis of religion, they were fighting due to their ethnic characteristics. That's why it was considered they are not much mature, they were not very much cautious about the unity and integrity of the nation. So it was necessary for the constitution makers to make certain provisions, to include certain provisions in the constitution which can ensure that, which can protect the unity and integrity of the nation. That's why we had opted this pattern of our polity. Yani our constitution included not only the federal features but unitary characters also. Now the second question, how it is, we can consider that it is blend of the constitution, unitary and federal both. So for that reason we have to first inquire the features of federal constitution, features of unitary constitution, and then we will examine that which character of federal or which character of unitary constitution are in our constitution. Okay? Now one is a federal constitution, second is unitary constitution, and what about Indian constitution? Federal constitution is a constitution which is written and rigid. Written and rigid. Federal constitution can be described as federal and rigid constitution, and normally it provides for dual polity. Dual polity yani dual government system. Dual polity or dual government system. And thirdly, it provides for dual citizenship. Yani federal constitution provides for dual citizenship. and federal constitution is the supreme, means the supremacy of the constitution is federal character, because in federal system there are two units, union and state, and both are bound with certain norms, with certain conditions and certain rules, and no one can neglect, no one can reject, no one can neglect the provisions of this constitution. And if any unit, either state or union, refuses or neglect this provision, then there is a federal court which will decide the functions of that state or union as unconstitutional. It means the supremacy of the constitution is a federal character of the constitution. Separate judicial system. In federal constitution, separate judicial system for union and state has been provided. Separate judicial system for union and separate judicial system for state laws. Yani whenever the conflict or any case is related with the state laws, then only state judiciary will handle it. And when the problem or challenges or the conflict is related with the central laws, then only central judiciary will handle it. And in the case of conflict between central and state laws, then there will be a federal court which will handle the cases. Okay? Then dual judicial system. Dual judicial system होगा, separate judiciary for union and separate judiciary for state. If the constitution is federal, then surely it will provide for division of power between center and state. Division of power between center and state. In federal constitution, one other character is presence of federal court. Presence of federal court. Next provision is bicameral legislature. Bicameral legislature. For example, in India, Parliament is bicameral. Lower house, that is Lok-Sabha, is an example of public sovereignty. It means it is the representative body, consists of the representatives of the people of the country, while upper house is the representatives of the state. Means upper house yani Rajya Sabha, Council of State, represents the states of Indian Union. Means all the states collectively forms the union, and upper house represents those states. And now it can be considered as a federal house because all the states are participating in that house. It means upper house will be of federal character. Written and rigid constitution. Dual polity means dual government system. Dual citizenship, supremacy of the constitution, dual judicial system, division of power, presence of federal court, bicameral legislature. Similarly, certain characters we have in our constitution also. For example, written and rigid constitution, I have said that we have written constitution mostly rigid. ओके यानी कि एक चीज जो यहां कॉमन हमको मिल रहा है वो क्या है, वो मिल रहा है रिटन एंड मोस्टली रिजिड. बट certain amount of flexibility. यहाँ पे जो यूनिटरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है इसके फीचर भी देख लें तो इंडिया को समझना ज्यादा आसान होगा। इन यूनिटरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन फ्लेक्सिबल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज देयर, फ्लेक्सिबल, मे बी रिटन और नॉन रिटन, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मे बी रिटन अनरिटन, बट नॉट रिजिड, इट इज फ्लेक्सिबल। सिंगल पॉलिटी, सिंगल एंड सेंट्रलाइज्ड पॉलिटी, एक ही सरकार होती है, सिंगल गवर्नमेंट। हियर वी हैव डुअल गवर्नमेंट इन फेडरल सिस्टम, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, but in unitary polity we have single and centralized polity or government, because all the powers are vested within one government, while in federal system the powers are divided between two governments in different subjects. Third point is single citizenship. Single citizenship, third point. Fourth point, supremacy of the constitution we have, but not in unitary constitution, because in unitary constitution it is parliament which enjoy all the power. It means legislative supremacy. Dual judicial system in federal, but in unitary single and integrated judicial system. Single and integrated judicial system. Single and integrated judicial system. Division of power in federal system, but here distribution of power. In unitary constitution, it is the distribution of power, not division of power. Distribution or delegation of power. Unicameral or bicameral, whatever, but bicameral, in bicameral also, no, upper house is not the representative of any state, that is the representative of upper gentry of the society, lords, elite वर्ग, उनका यहाँ पर वो होता है। यहाँ पर फिर से देखिए, in federal constitution the constitution is always written and very rigid, because without the consent of union as well as the state, no provision can be amended. In federal constitution, dual government system, it means in regional subjects there is a state government, and for national subject and centralized system there is a union government. We have two levels of government in federal polity. In federal polity, because union and state both are having different political entities, that's why dual citizenship is allowed. Yani in federal constitution, dual citizenship is an important provision, and supremacy of the constitution is required in federal system, because here the whole system is based on an agreement between center and state, and if agreement will not be given superiority, then anyone can breach it. So it is compulsory to give supremacy to that agreement, so that both the entities can exercise their power, can exercise their authority within the limits and jurisdiction defined in that agreement, and that agreement is known as constitution. So constitution should be given the supremacy in federal polity. And division of power is very necessary, because if two polity are there and division of power is not maintained, then both will be confused. Both entities will be confused and they can encroach the area of other, and which can lead the dispute. So there is a need of clarity of their jurisdiction, their subjects, their authority. That's why federal constitution provides for division of power, so that no entity can interfere into the jurisdiction of other. Presence of federal court, why? Because the agreement has supremacy, and if a court system of the state and court system of the union having the jurisdiction on different subjects, if anything arises which is creating a conflict between state and center, then which court can examine the case, which court can adjudicate the case? If it will be central court, then state will be dissatisfied. If it will be the state court, then central will be dissatisfied. That's why there is a provision for federal court which can handle all the issues related to center and state. Similarly, bicameral legislature is required because at the central level all the states are involved now. When all the states are involved in making of law, then how they can be given representation? Then in parliament, which is the highest lawmaking body at the center, here the upper house was created. In upper house, the states and their representative were making their decision about any particular law, because ultimately the law made by the parliament will be executed in any state now, because all the states will be a unit for that law, and if all states are not having consent, have not given their consent in making of that law, then their implementation will be very difficult. That's why to secure their consent, to get their approval, it is necessary that they should have participation in making of law even on the national subject. That's why upper house, that is Council of State, means Rajya Sabha, was created in India. Similarly, in any federal system, there are two houses in the central legislature, like USA. But in unitary constitutions like Britain, the law made by the parliament is the constitution. In Britain, whatever the order has been given, has been direct, any direction given by the court, any ordinance passed by the Queen, they all are having same importance in running the affairs of the nation. It means they all comes under the preview of constitution. So in country like Britain, the constitution is very flexible, because one law can be amended by another law. Yani it is not very difficult to change any established provision, any established system, because no special provision is required, and parliament can make any change any time in any provision. That's why it is very flexible, and no problem is there, because there is no separate entity. There is a centralized government system, and all the powers are vested in that system. That system is making law, that system is making policy, so that system should have the authority to change this. If all the powers are vested within one government, then that government can change anytime that law, because there is no obligation, there is no restrictions on the power of that government, because that is not federal, unitary constitution. And in unitary constitution, all powers are enjoyed by a single authority, and if single authority is enjoying all the power, then there is no restrictions on its power. Okay, so flexible constitution, and it may be written or unwritten. Second, single and centralized polity means in unitary constitution, all the legislative, all the executive powers are vested within one government. It means centralized government, while in federal system we have decentralized government. यानी कि वन फीचर आप यहाँ पे और लिख सकते हैं, यहाँ पर डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम होता है, डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम, और यहाँ पर क्या होता है, सेंट्रलाइज्ड गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम होता है. centralized government system. Centralization is a process through which all the powers of making decisions are vested within one authority, while decentralization is a process through which all the decision making powers are divided between two or more than two authorities. So in federal system there is a decentralization, means powers are divided between center and state, while in unitary polity the powers are vested within one government, yani centralization of power, and centralization of power makes the government strong and all the decisions are taken by that government only. And because whole country is a single political entity run by a single government, so single citizenship means single political identity for all. What is citizenship? Citizenship is a political status given to the resident of a country. It may be provided by the law. If it is provided by law, then it will become legal status. Citizenship is a legal status provided by law to the residents of a country, by virtue of which that resident enjoy all the political, civil, economic rights within the sphere of the country, within the territory of the country. And when we will talk about the citizens, then citizens are the resident having political, civil and financial economic powers. It means when whole country is a single political unit, so the citizenship will be single. It means you will be considered as a resident of whole country, not any state, because state has no identity in unitary system. Then single citizenship is the important characteristics of unitary constitution. And legislative supremacy, here the supremacy of constitution was because there were more than one authorities, and if more than one authorities are there, then natural phenomena is that there must be a clear division of work, division of power, division of authority, and if there is division of authority, then supremacy must be vested within one neutral and independent system. But in this country, all the power is vested within one authority. So that authority which is authorized to make law, that will be superior now, because we'll have authority for making any law to run the country. So here legislative supremacy is there. Means government has three organs: legislature, executive and judiciary. In country where there is a supremacy of the constitution, which institution will have the authority? Judiciary, because the constitution will be protected by any independent institution, and that is the judiciary. But where the constitution is not supreme, where the power is made by a particular institution, then only that institution, because that institution is authorized to declare that any law is legal or is valid or invalid. So here the authority are vested within the legislature, and judiciary has to work within the law made by the parliament. Here the judiciary was not bound to work under the law of the parliament, because constitution was defining the authority, the jurisdiction and the power of the judiciary. That's why they were not under the control of the legislature. But here all the institutions are controlled by a single authority. So the single authority in democracy, that is the legislature, because that is consist of the representative elected by the people. That's why here the legislature has supremacy. And this unitary federal system, unitary polity, is found in country like Britain, and this federal polity is found the country like America. But what we are having the legacy of Britishers. Our constitution is the legacy of British Empire. They will promote regionalism. That's why we decided to include certain extraordinary provisions which were not federal in nature, like President rule, like national emergency, so that these states can be controlled and the constitution can be given the supremacy. That's why we try to make a constitution which can survive many kind of situation in emergency and in ordinary situation. And we made a specific document. We had created a specific document. We opted our structure federal. Means in ordinary condition we will be federal. If you are not violating the provisions of the constitution, I am federal and you can enjoy your authority. But at the moment you will promote regionalism, at the moment you will violate constitution, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar had made a deep research. He studied the constitution of many countries, and after that a brilliant formula he came out, and he suggested the Constituent Assembly that we should have the special characters from different countries which is suited to our situation. We should not follow any particular constitution. We should not follow any other particular type of political system. We should opt the specific provisions according to our situation. That's why our constitution became the bag of bones, according to the critics. But it is a brilliant example of intellectual and intelligent combinations. Our constitution is a brilliant example. In spite of having such kind of diversity, in spite of having such kind of conflicting ideologies, in spite of having such kind of political regimes, we are still surviving. Our constitution is still surviving because it has adjustability. It has the capability to adjust itself in any kind of situation. And that feature which are providing the capacity to our constitution are written and mostly rigid constitution, like in normal condition we are this, but in certain condition it is very flexible. Whenever it will be required and the state will try to make certain kind of nuisance, if they are promoting regionalism, then the central has been given the power to demolish the state, to change their boundary, to change their name, to change their status, and this power is vested within the center. It make it flexible. Second, dual government system. Yes, we have dual government system. Dual government system. We have central and state, but whenever the situation will be extraordinary, we will change ourselves into unitary. Like in any state, when there will be an extraordinary situation, then state legislature will be dissolved, state council of ministers will be terminated, and all the powers will be exercised by the center. But in emergency, single polity, like union territories, like the area where president rule has been imposed, we have single polity, means ek sarkar, central government. State government is rejected. Third, we opted single citizenship. From here we opted single citizenship because we were trying to maintain unity in diversity. That was our requirement. Otherwise we were not supposed to be Indian. We were Punjabi, we were Gujarati, we were Jharkhandi. Means to inculcate the emotion of Indianism, even to make the people united. No matter, doesn't matter that they are residing in which part of the state, but they all are Indians. This feeling can improve the sense of integrity. That's why single citizenship was provided by our constitution, and it was suggested the important for our kind of political system. 4. Supremacy of the constitution. Yes, we opted supremacy of the constitution, but here little centralization is found. No doubt division of power is there. 7th schedule of the Indian constitution defines union list, state list, concurrent list. It means their division of power, but authority has been given to the parliament to change these lists. It means we have opted for distribution of power. In our country, we have distribution of power. Who is distributing? Constitution. And in certain situation, the power has been given to the parliament to remove certain subjects from the concurrent list. We have division of power, but whenever it is required, then distribution of power is our feature. In federal constitution, we have dual, separate, independent judicial system. Separate, independent judicial system for the union as well as for the state. यानी यूनियन के लिए, स्टेट के लिए सेपरेट जुडिशियल सिस्टम. In India, and here in unitary system, there is unitary, integrated judicial system. In our country also, we have opted for integrated judicial system. What is integrated judicial system? When the central laws are governed or enforced by a central judiciary, when state laws are enforced by the state judiciary, then it is considered as separate judicial system. But when a single court enforces not only the state laws but as well as the central law also, yani all central as well as state laws are enforced by a single judicial system, then it is considered as integrated judicial system. We have opted it, and the problem or a question was there that why we are not opting separate judicial system when we are opting a federal polity. The question was raised in Constituent Assembly, and the answer was very interesting, because we were having the legacy of Britishers, and it was not possible to change any institution. At that time, we were just holding the ownership. We were not making any new system, because at the time only the power transfer was there, and many different type of provisions were in Government of India Act 1935, and we were just accepting all the provisions and taking the ownership. Even liabilities and assets, both we had accepted, and all the cases registered under IPC, Indian Penal Code, and all the provisions related to laws, CRPC, CPC, everything we were taking from British. And now it was not possible to change the judicial pattern in our country, because for that purpose we must develop at that time the different penal code, a different procedure code, because our system was trained in that particular laws, and we were not having any independent system at that time to develop these kind of institutions. So we were compelled and we were bound to have such system, because we were accepting a combination of unitary and federal characters. So having integrated system was our requirement at that time. That's why we never thought about separate judicial system for center and state. But they were independent. It is a federal character. They were independent, means central state were not able to control it. They were having power to make their own rules for proceedings. For example, Article 145 of the Indian Constitution gives the power to the Supreme Court to make rules for its proceedings after the consultation of President of India. Means they were completely independent in deciding their own procedure or rules or working. Thus, our constitution, other provisions like emergency provisions, emergency and governor, appointment of governor in the state, appointment of governor by president, reorganization of state, amendment of the constitution, they all were the unitary character. And why we opted, we had discussed enough. And that's why our constitution is suited to our own condition. Our constitution is feasible for our own situations. That's why our constitution is considered as a very distinctive, very specific document, which is relevant today, which was relevant yesterday, which will be relevant tomorrow, because it has the ability to change itself according to the changing situations. So, it is not wrong to say that we are federal in structure and unitary in behavior. Even 𝐻𝐶 Ware, an eminent jurist, described Indian Constitution as quasi-judicial, quasi-federal constitution. Quasi-federal means 𝐼𝐻𝐸 constitution. Quasi-federal, why? He said that after examining its provisions, I am unable to find the pure federal characters. And after examining other provisions, we are finding it like an unitary. So I am confused that it is federal or it is unitary. And even nowhere in the constitution the term federal has been used. Even Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that in Article 1, we are saying that India is the union of states. And union means Hindi mein sang, but not federal, because it is not the result of agreement among the units of Indian Union. The union means a little tendency towards centralization. Union means the states are not capable, they are not authorized to secede from the union. राज्य बाहर नहीं निकल सकते इसमें से. But little centralization. Parliament has the power to completely dissolve them, to finish them, and to make them as a state or as a union territory. It is the parliament who will decide the fate of the state. But the state has no power to secede from the union. That's why we are not federal. We are federal in character. We are federal in our structure, but not originally federal. So, भले ही हम इसे हिंदी में राज्यों का संघ कह रहे हैं, स्ट्रक्चर में ये संघ है, लेकिन इसके कैरेक्टर्स, जो इसके फीचर्स हैं, जो इसका एक नेचर है, वो पूरी तरह से फेडरल नहीं है. ये कौन कह रहा है? ये एक और 𝐻𝐶 वेयर कह रहे हैं, और दूसरा हमारे डॉक्टर बी आर अम्बेडकर साहब ने भी इसको स्पष्ट किया था. और 𝐻𝐶 वेयर ने इन कॉम्बिनेशंस को देखते हुए यहां पर ये बोला कि इट इज नाइदर फेडरल नॉर यूनिटरी, बट इट इज क्वासी फेडरल. यानी ये फेडरल है लेकिन आधा. आधा क्या है? यूनिटरी. एंड इवन आइवर जेनिंग्स ऑल्सो said that it is a unitary constitution with certain federal characters. वो कहते हैं तो यूनिटरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, देखो हर जगह पूरा यूनिटरी यूनिटरी, जहां पर ये फेडरल वहां पे भी यूनिटरी कहीं ना कहीं कंपोनेंट दिख जाते हैं. तो दिस इज अ यूनिटरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन विद सर्टेन फेडरल कैरेक्टर. बट व्हाट वी विल से, we will say that Indian constitution is a federal constitution. Okay, because the provisions like dual polity, the provisions like supremacy of the constitution, the provisions like written constitution, the provision like rigid constitution, the provision like bicameral legislature, the provision like division of power, we found it in our constitution. So it is federal. However, certain unitary characters are also the part of our constitution. So finally we can accept that we are a federal constitution with certain unitary character to meet the requirement या to meet the situation according to the need. ठीक है, इस प्रकार से our constitution is a blend of federal and unitary constitution. Write a question. Discuss the features, discuss the federal features, discuss the federal features of the Indian Constitution. However, it is a quasi-federal in nature. However, it is a quasi-federal in nature. Okay, you have to write the answer. The answer is here. आप इसे अपने शब्दों में लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है, टुमारो कल की क्लास में हम लोग इसके दो और इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर देखेंगे. हाउ इट इज अ लिविंग डॉक्यूमेंट, हाउ इट इज अ डेमोक्रेटिक डॉक्यूमेंट, एंड हाउ इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कैन बी डिस्क्राइब्ड एज अ सोवरेन डॉक्यूमेंट. ये तीन कैरेक्टरिस्टिक कल हम लोग देखेंगे. ठीक है, एंड जितने भी फीचर्स हम देख रहे हैं, प्रीलिम्स में तो पूछा जाएगा क्या है इसमें से अंदर से, लेकिन मेंस का एक प्रश्न इसके ऊपर तैयार. वो चाहे कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म पर पूछ लें, वो चाहे कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म पर पूछ लें, और चाहे सिंपल पीसीएस में जाओगे तो सिंपल पूछ लेंगे, और अगर आईएएस में जाओगे तो इसका कोई ना कोई एप्लीकेशन आपसे पूछा जाएगा. एनी क्वेश्चन वांट टू रेज? फेडरल फीचर्स में स्टेट गवर्नमेंट अपने सब्जेक्ट मैटर में कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट होते हैं, बिकॉज दे आर डिवीजन ऑफ पावर. जो सब्जेक्ट्स स्टेट को दे दिए गए हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल स्टेट लिस्ट के सब्जेक्ट हैं अमेरिका में, उसमें सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट कोई इंटरफेयर नहीं कर सकता. दे आर कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट. while in union subject state will not interfere, and whenever they have to say something they have to say in Senate. उनको वहां पर कहना होगा. ठीक है, यानी कि वहां पर कंप्लीटली ऑटोनॉमी, कंप्लीट इंडिपेंडेंस एक दूसरे से मिलता है. ये डुअल फ्लैग होता है फेडरल सिस्टम में. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ पर स्टेट आर नॉट कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट. वी हैव फेडरल सिस्टम बट हमारे सिस्टम कुछ और है. स्टेट कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं है. उन्हें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के प्रोविजन के अंदर में ही काम करना होगा. और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को पावर देता है अंडर आर्टिकल 256 एंड 257 कि अगर मान लीजिए राज्य को कहा गया कि वो अपने पावर का इस्तेमाल इस प्रकार करेंगे जिससे सेंटर को वहां अपने पावर का इस्तेमाल करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम ना हो, और ऐसा करने के लिए सेंटर के पास पावर होगा स्टेट को ऑर्डर देने का. और साथ ही साथ आर्टिकल 365 में कह दिया कि अगर स्टेट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का ऑर्डर नहीं मानता है तो ये मानना प्रेसिडेंट के लिए कंप्लीटली फेजेबल होगा, राइट होगा कि स्टेट में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मशीनरी फेल हो गई है. एंड इन दिस बिहाफ ही कैन इंपोज प्रेसिडेंट रूल इन द स्टेट अंडर आर्टिकल 356. यानी केंद्र के आदेश के अनुसार जब उनको काम करना है तो इंडिपेंडेंसी का. ठीक है, तो यानी इंडिया में स्टेट कंप्लीटली इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं है. इवन उनका जो एग्जीक्यूटिव हेड है राज्यपाल, वो राष्ट्रपति के इच्छा पर रहता है राज्य में. यानी जब चाहे तब उसको वो हटा दें और जब चाहे राज्य की सरकार को बर्खास्त कर दें अगर गवर्नमेंट वहां का गवर्नर कह रहा है. इसका मतलब मल्टीपल तरीके ऐसे हैं जिनसे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को कंट्रोल करती है इन इंडिया. लेकिन अमेरिका जैसे रियल फेडरल सिस्टम में ऐसा नहीं. ठीक है, एनी अदर क्वेश्चन? चलिए कल मिलते हैं.